a consequence of exploring, experimenting and navigating with holistic voice work as a tool to support your personal development process is that the check-in points and the quality of self-reflection that comes from considering these different aspects of the self, identity, expression, give you the opportunity to check in at a level that goes beyond and has more depth to it than that point of, okay, how am I feeling? And that often the way that we meet that question is only connecting with one aspect of ourselves, and depending on how we are as we are arriving into that quality of inquiry, or perhaps setting ourselves up to move into a practice, we may have been exploring other spaces or other activities that perhaps have us immersed in a particular area, or if we look at it through the 5 elements lens, one element perhaps is more dominant than the others. So a good example would be having come from a work space or an environment where there's a lot of cognitive process and brain power, problem solving skills being used, or say from a really socially stimulating environment where there's been lots of interaction, lots of communication. So those are 2 examples of different environments where there may have been a heightened quality of being immersed in a particular element, or a particular flavor will have perhaps been more dominant. And so part of the process of starting to consider and frame your check-in through this 5 element perspective gives you permission to contact these different parts of you. How am I can actually be a precursor then to how am I in my social self, my spiritual self, my emotional self, my physiological self, and my psychological self. And there may be themes, there may be continuity. It might feel like the quality of those answers doesn't offer you initially a spectrum or a lot of variety in how you respond to those. But as you start to become more comfortable with actually taking time to listen and get to know those different elements, and perhaps explore those elements in isolation through targeted exercises and different reflection prompts, the quality of your responses does start to shift in tandem with the shift of beginning to think in this holistic way and in this multidisciplinary way, that all of these different parts of yourself are being included in the asking process. And I wanted to mention that and think about giving an example of how working with that frame of understanding in my own personal practice has started to shift the way that I interact with spaces also, because it's a philosophy or a worldview to a degree. So my example from today is going into a cafe and arriving and coming into the space and sitting there and then trying to decide, do I want to stay in here? So the kind of overarching theme related to that question definitely comes into that quality of trying to assess whether I'm experiencing safety in the space, or that's the undertone. But then if I start to think about safety through these different elements, that is helping me to assess in a way that feels like I'm going through a bit of a protocol and a kind of check-in to determine, can I trust my instinct, or can I trust that initial touch point of, I don't really feel like I want to stay here, I don't really feel comfortable, and then taking that inquiry a level deeper by going into each of the different elements and sort of checking in with my body, like how does my body feel in the space? Am I comfortable? Do I feel at ease here? Socially, what is the dynamic like? Does it feel welcoming? Does it feel do I feel seen in the space? Does it feel like somewhere that I want to be? Do I want to associate myself with the kind of energy, social energy that is in this environment? And then the kind of spiritual reflection is perhaps more intangible and difficult to articulate, in the sense that everyone has their unique reference point for that. But that kind of communication can be coming through in a kind of subconscious way, or really in a way that is closely aligned with that emotional connection aspect. What does my soul say to this space? Like, what does my spirit feel supported here? Do I feel like I'm shutting down? Do I feel like I can fully be present in myself in this space? And emotionally speaking, that quality of perhaps there are different motivations and intentions to why we come into different spaces, but also trying to ask that question, like, is this space going to complement what my emotional needs are right now? And it might not, or it might, and just that is something that would be, for me at least, acknowledged in that kind of like felt sense of, yeah, am I able to feel like it's possible for me to connect with my emotional self right now? Or in order to like be in this space, am I having to kind of constrict that or reduce that in some way? And then from a psychological point of view, very much that I will be checking in with that based on what my internal dialogue is saying to me, and that internal dialogue might be pulling out and translating aspects of my other experiences that I'm kind of drawing in sensorily from these other elements that I'm connecting with, and translating that into a language that is intellectualizing and trying to compartmentalize those assessments, ongoing assessments. But that's always a good indicator, like going into a space, how does it change my my self-talk and my narrative? And if it's telling me like, I don't feel comfortable here, I don't like it, or whatever is going on, it's trying to then acknowledge that and to not necessarily feel that that is an incorrect assessment, but finding it interesting to explore, then checking in with these other parts of yourself. And in today's instance of exploring this and bringing this example forward whilst it's clear in my mind, it was definitely a case of going in and kind of quite quickly getting a sense of I don't think this place is right for me just now. I don't think it's going to serve my needs. And then waiting a little bit, and then kind of making a bit of a checklist in my mind, like, oh, if this part doesn't feel like it's going to be fulfilled, in the next minute or two, then I think that's my cue to actually leave and to find another space. And I gave myself permission to leave the space as well, which I think is that's a process and a step that is interesting to explore as well. And as it happened, I found another cafe, and instantly going into that space felt different, and there was different quality, a different atmosphere, a different energy, different social engagement with the staff that were in there, and a quality of relaxation. And so it kind of then ticked all of these boxes of like, oh yeah, I feel like I can actually be in this space and rest here for a moment and kind of relax enough in myself to tap into that quality of reflection, daydreaming, feel like I can let my guard down, and actually was able to have a nice connection point as well with the other people in the space. So I think I'm framing that as a way of highlighting how I'm finding other ways to explore the reference point of the 5 elements framework, and use that as a check-in in other environments, out with the context simply of just the voice work practice space, or in a performative environment. But actually those opportunities for a deeper exploration help in a way to strengthen the skill set there. And then it's, how does that then translate? How do you carry that with you into the other environments that you find yourself interacting with? And if it's helpful for you, then why not? Why not start to introduce and begin to integrate these different approaches that are essentially trying to achieve and strengthen and cultivate that quality of more connected, authentic quality of listening to your inner space, so that you begin to build confidence with that guidance system, and listen to not just the voice of your intellect, but the voice of your other spaces as well. And the more that you are giving yourself permission to do that, again, reflecting on my personal applications and experience with this, it feels good and it feels comfortable to know that you have invited all of yourself into a decision-making process, or even into a process of reflection and engagement and looking at the world, because things are multifaceted in nature. So yeah, I wanted to share that just insight from today, and I'd be interested to hear if there are any questions or things that resonate for you, that if there's anything that you would like me to pull out of that and unpack, then yeah, comment on this, reach out to me. And yeah, I just I'm enjoying taking the time to drop into this quality of space where I can share applications as they are being processed and occurring in real time for me, because obviously I'm in a space of support and facilitation in assisting others to get to know and to learn and to navigate with these tools and start to understand more about them. But all of that becomes irrelevant if I don't also explore and implement and work with and continue to discover and apply them in different ways. So I think it's useful also for my accountability purposes, but also just that those insights and reflections can illuminate and offer some quality for others as well. So hopefully there's a few nuggets in there